Hello, sleepyheads. Settle in and get cozy. Tonight, we're venturing into the frosty realms of Norse mythology, where gods walk among giants and magic hums in the air. Our story tonight is about Odin, the All-Father, and his quest for a very special drink, the mead of poetry. It's a tale of cleverness, a touch of trickery, and the extraordinary power of words. So snuggle down, close your eyes, and let's drift into the realm. But just before we begin, if our stories help you drift off, please tap the like and subscribe buttons. In my channel, you can find Norse, Greek, and Egyptian mythology tales. Comment and tell me which myth you'd like to hear next. Your support helps us craft and shape more calm stories for fellow night owls. And now let your shoulders sink softly into the mattress and your mind drift into today's tale. The golden halls of Asgard gleamed, softly lit by the perpetual, shimmering aurora borealis that danced across the vaulted ceilings. Each polished flagstone, each intricately carved pillar, seemed to absorb and diffuse the ethereal light, creating an atmosphere of serene grandeur. Yet, beneath this gilded tranquility, a subtle stillness, deeper than peace, hung in the air, a quiet born of absence. It was the silence of a grand symphony hall after the final note has faded, leaving behind only the echo of what once was. The usual boisterous laughter of the Einar jar was muted, the clinking of tankards in Valhalla less fervent. The very air seemed to hold its breath. Odin, the All-Father, sat upon Eichlidskjalf, his high seat, from which he could survey all 9 realms. His single, keen eye, usually sparkling with the fire of boundless curiosity and strategic brilliance, now held a shadow of profound longing. It was a weariness not of body, but of spirit. Though Lord of Asgard, wisest of gods, and master of cosmic law, this deep-seated peace had left a profound emptiness within him. The endless tales spun in the mead halls felt hollow. The rousing battle songs lacked their usual resonance, and even the sagas of heroic deeds seemed incomplete, as if a vital stanza had been torn from their pages. Strength and bravery were abundant in his realm, the very bedrock of Asgardian might, but true wisdom, the kind that illuminated the soul and inspired new thought, was missing. It was not merely knowledge he craved, but insight, intuition, the spark that ignites the imagination and breathes life into words. He yearned for that spark, the fire of insight that could transform mere information into profound understanding, the eloquence that transcended simple communication and moved the hearts of gods and mortals alike. He closed his eye, a sigh barely audible escaping his lips, and breathed deeply, drawing in the cool, crisp air of Asgard, hoping it might somehow fill the void within him. His fingers, gnarled and strong from wielding Gungnir and shaping destiny, idly traced the ancient runes carved into the armrest of Eichlidskjalf, feeling the cool, smooth stone beneath his touch. The silence in the throne room was so absolute that he could almost hear the gentle thrum of cosmic energy vibrating through the very fabric of existence. Then faint at first, like the rustle of leaves in a far-off forest. Whispers, ancient and profound, began to stir on the cosmic winds. They were not mere sounds, but currents of thought carried on the ether, brushing against the edges of his consciousness. These whispers spoke of deep magic, of secrets long forgotten beneath the roots of time, and of a legend resonating with new urgency, Cave Asir. The name itself felt like a gentle melody. Cave Asir, they murmured, was born from the spittle of the Aesir and Vanir, a singular being formed from the very essence of their shared wisdom and understanding. A peace offering after the ancient war that had once threatened to tear the cosmos asunder. He embodied shared knowledge, traveling the realms, his mere presence illuminating all he encountered, his words like streams of pure, crystalline thought, nourishing minds and souls. The whispers painted a picture of a benevolent wanderer, his footsteps gentle on the earth, his voice a balm to troubled spirits, his insights a beacon in the darkest, intellectual night. He was the living embodiment of the very wisdom Odin now so desperately sought. But then the whispers darkened, taking on a somber, sorrowful tone. Cave Asir's light, so pure and brilliant, had attracted envious eyes clouded by greed and petty malice. Two dwarves, Fjalar and Galar, notorious for their cunning and their dark arts, had seen in Cave Asir not a source of enlightenment, but a means to power. They lured him under false pretenses into their hidden cave, a place of damp stone and echoing darkness, deep within the earth. There, in an act of unimaginable treachery, they murdered him, spilling his precious, life-giving blood onto the cold, unfeeling stone. A shudder ran through Odin as the whispers described the grotesque act, the vibrant life force draining away into the earth. Yet from this horror sprang a twisted ingenuity. The dwarves, ever practical in their depravity, had not let Cave Asir's essence go to waste. They mixed his blood with the richest, sweetest honey, a golden, viscous liquid, pouring the concoction into 3 great vats, each carved with intricate, disturbing sigils, Bothan, San, and Cave Asir. From this unholy, yet wondrous blend, they brewed the mead of poetry. The whispers finished, leaving a potent image in Odin's mind. Whoever drank even a single drop of this potent elixir would gain Cave Asir's boundless wisdom, his unparalleled eloquence, and his sublime poetic skill. It was the very essence of inspiration, distilled into a tangible form. Odin's single eye, which had been shadowed by weariness moments before, widened. A spark, small at first, but rapidly growing into a roaring flame, ignited within him. This was it. This was the answer, the missing piece, the very essence that could rekindle Asgard's flagging spirit and restore the vibrant intellectual life that had slowly, imperceptibly dimmed. It was not merely a drink. It was a key, a conduit to the very heart of creation and understanding. He rose from Echlid's shelf, the ancient seat groaning softly under his weight. A quiet, unshakable determination settling over him, replacing the weariness that had weighed him down. He needed more information, every detail, every nuance of this mystical mead's journey, he decided to consult both Mimir's well and the ancient runes, for the Norns held the threads of destiny, and Mimir, the fount of all knowledge. He walked through the sleeping city, past the silent, majestic structures of Asgard, their gold and silver glinting softly in the eternal twilight. His footsteps, usually echoing with power, were hushed, absorbed by the thick, ornate tapestries that adorned the walls. He passed the shimmering, iridescent arch of the Bifrost Bridge, its rainbow colors muted in the pre-dawn glow, and continued onwards, his path leading him towards the very roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree. The colossal trunk, ancient beyond measure, hummed with a deep, resonant cosmic energy, its branches reaching into every realm, its roots delving into the primordial depths. The air grew cooler, imbued with the scent of damp earth and ancient magic. As he descended deeper, he reached the well of Urther, tended by the Norns, Urther, Verthandi, and Skuld, who wove the tapestry of fate. The air around the well thrummed with a palpable sense of destiny, the whispers of past, present, and future intertwining. Kneeling on the mossy stone beside the well's edge, Odin gazed into its depths, the water a dark, reflective mirror, asking for guidance, for the clarity only the Norns could provide. The waters shimmered, responding to his unspoken request, parting like a veil to reveal a succession of visions. He saw Kvasir's gentle life, his serene wisdom, then the horrific moment of his death, the crimson stain spreading. Then the images shifted, showing the dwarves, their faces contorted in cruel glee, mixing the blood and honey, brewing the potent mead. The visions continued, showing the mead's tumultuous journey. The dwarves, in their insatiable greed, had found themselves in a perilous situation, perhaps even facing the wrath of the very giants they sought to outwit. In a desperate bid for their lives, they had traded their most precious possession, the mead of poetry, to the formidable giant Suttungr, a being of immense power and cunning, known for his vast wealth and his impenetrable mountain fortress. Suttungr, understanding the immense value of his new acquisition, had hidden it away within the very heart of his mountain stronghold, Hnitbjörg. The mountain itself seemed to rise from the earth like a jagged, impenetrable tooth, its peaks shrouded in perpetual mist. And guarding this priceless treasure was his fierce and loyal daughter, Gunnlurth. The image of her, stern and unwavering, her eyes like chips of ice, was etched into Odin's mind. She was not a guard to be easily bypassed. Odin absorbed this information, each detail sinking deep into his strategic mind. His brow furrowed slightly as he realized the true scale of the quest's challenge. It was not merely a matter of finding the mead, but of retrieving it from the iron grip of a powerful giant, defended by his equally formidable daughter, within an unassailable fortress. Yet, this daunting prospect did not deter him. Instead, it sharpened his resolve. He thanked the shimmering well, a silent nod of gratitude to the Norns, and turned to Mimir's well, located nearby, another source of profound knowledge, though of a different kind. The air around Mimir's well was cooler, perhaps even colder, carrying the faint scent of ancient earth and the profound silence of deep contemplation. Mimir, a disembodied head, preserved through ancient magic in the deep, clear pool, his eyes glowing with an inner light, greeted him. "You seek knowledge again, Odin," Mimir's voice echoed, a low, resonant sound that seemed to emanate from the very water itself. It was a voice that held the weight of eons. "Yes, Mimir," Odin replied, his voice firm, unwavering. "I seek the mead of poetry to rekindle Asgard, to restore the true spirit of wisdom and insight that has begun to wane." He spoke of the quiet desolation, the dullness that had crept into the heart of his realm, the yearning for that vital spark. Mimir's eyes glowed brighter, a light of understanding shining within their depths. "A noble quest, All-Father, and one that requires more than brute strength. Sudungur holds it, guarded by Gunlurth within Hnitbjörg. You must use guile, All-Father, deception, and patience, for the giant is wary, and his daughter fiercely loyal." Mimir's voice contained a hint of amusement, as if he already saw the intricate dance of cunning that Odin would have to perform. Mimir then began to speak in greater detail, his words painting a vivid picture of the challenges ahead. He spoke of Sudungur's immense pride, his distrust of all outsiders, particularly gods, and his miserly nature. He described Hnitbjörg's formidable defenses, towering walls of jagged stone, cunning traps, and hidden passages known only to Sudungur and Gunlurth. He spoke of Gunlurth herself, her unyielding devotion to her father, her keen senses, and her unwavering vigilance. She was not a maiden to be charmed, but a guardian to be overcome. Odin listened intently, his mind already racing, formulating a plan. It would not be a frontal assault, for that would surely fail. It would require transformation, cunning, and an almost superhuman patience. He would have to approach Sudungur under a disguise, gain his trust through subtle means, deceive him with clever words, bypass the formidable Gunlurth, and finally reach the mead that lay hidden deep within the mountain's heart. He envisioned himself not as the All-Father, but as a humble traveler, a clever worker, a persuasive orator, anything to gain access. As the sun, a pale golden disk, began to rise over Asgard's highest peaks, casting long, ethereal shadows across the gleaming city, Odin felt a profound shift within him. The weariness of the past days had vanished, replaced by a surge of revitalizing energy. The quest, though challenging and fraught with peril, filled him with a renewed sense of purpose, a vital spark that had been missing. He bid farewell to Mimir, the ancient head offering a silent, knowing nod, ascended from Yggdrasil's roots, and returned to Asgard. The subtle stillness, the quiet born of absence, still lingered in the golden halls, but now it was accompanied by a powerful undercurrent of hope and unshakable determination. He would obtain the mead of poetry, bring true wisdom and boundless inspiration back to Asgard, and restore the very soul of the gods. His journey, a monumental undertaking that would test his cunning and his resolve, would begin soon. He felt the stirrings of a new saga, one he himself would write, not with a spear, but with his wits. And so, the whisper of cave Asir's passing reached even the highest halls. Odin, the Allfather, felt a chill, a tremor in the very fabric of existence. He had known cave Asir, he had valued cave Asir. This was no mere loss. It was a wound to the soul of the cosmos. He sought knowledge as always. His ravens, Hugin and Munin, flew wide. His spies, subtle as shadows, moved unseen. The truth, though cloaked in deceit, began to emerge. It spoke of two dwarves, Efjalar and Galar. Their names echoed with a sinister hum. They were known for their cunning, yes, but also for a dark streak, a greed that gnawed at their very essence. These two, it was said, had invited cave Asir. They had welcomed him into their cavernous dwelling. The air there was thick with the scent of ore and earth. It was a place of shadows and secrets. They had feigned friendship, these dwarves. They had offered him drink and comfort. Cave Asir, so pure of heart, suspected nothing. His wisdom was his strength, his innocence, his vulnerability. But their smiles were false. Their eyes held a glint of something cold. They desired cave Asir's wisdom. They coveted his very being. They saw not a friend, but a vessel. And then the unthinkable happened. In the dim light of their forge, they struck him down. It was a swift, brutal act, a betrayal that echoed through the stone. Cave Asir, the wisest of all, fell. His brilliant mind, his boundless knowledge all extinguished. His blood, the very essence of inspiration, flowed onto the cold stone floor. Efjalar and Galar, their hands stained, wasted no time. They were not driven by remorse. They were driven by a dark, grand design. They gathered cave Asir's blood. They caught every drop. They used great vats, intricately carved. The blood glowed faintly in the dim light. It shimmered with an inner luminescence. They mixed it with honey, sweetness to mask the bitter truth. They stirred it slowly, deliberately. The concoction thickened, transforming, and then they began to brew. It was a dark alchemy, a perversion of creation. They chanted ancient words, words of power, twisted to serve their vile purpose. The air in the cavern grew heavy. A strange aroma filled the space. It was sweet, yet metallic. It was intoxicating, yet unsettling. It was the scent of something profound, yet profoundly wrong. The mead bubbled and simmered. It was not a drink of joy. It was a drink of stolen potential. It was the essence of cave Asir, transformed. This was the mead of poetry, born of treachery, born of murder. It held the power of inspiration. It held the knowledge of the ages, but it was tainted. The dwarves, swollen with their unholy creation, reveled. They drank deeply. Their minds expanded. Their words flowed like rivers of pure thought. They became poets, yes, but their poetry was cold. It lacked the warmth of true inspiration. It was brilliant, but without heart. Their triumph, however, was short-lived. Their greed knew no bounds. Their dark deeds continued. They sought more power, they sought more gain. Their next victims were Gilling and his wife, a peaceful, elderly couple. They lived in quiet contentment. They knew nothing of the dwarves' dark heart. Fjaller and Galler invited them for a boat ride, a seemingly innocent gesture. The lake was calm, the sun bright. The air was crisp and clear, but the dwarves had planned their treachery. They rowed to the middle of the lake. The water stretched endlessly around them. There was no escape, and then they overturned the boat. Gilling, old and frail, struggled. His wife, equally helpless, cried out. The water was cold, unforgiving. The dwarves watched them drown. Their faces were impassive. There was no mercy in their eyes, just a cold, calculating satisfaction. They returned to shore. They spoke of a tragic accident. They feigned sadness, they feigned regret. But their hearts were as stony as the mountains. But word travels, even in the deepest caverns, even in the highest peaks. The son of Gilling, a mighty giant named Sudungur, heard the news. Sudungur was a formidable giant. His strength was legendary, his temper fierce, and his love for his parents was boundless. He felt a deep, burning rage, a sorrow that turned to fire. He knew the dwarves were involved. He had heard whispers of their dark deeds. He journeyed to their dwelling. His footsteps shook the very earth. His shadow fell over their mountain home. The dwarves trembled. Sudungur's eyes blazed. "Where are my parents?" he roared. His voice echoed like thunder. The dwarves cowered before him. They stammered, they stuttered. They tried to deny, but their guilt hung heavy in the air. Their lies were transparent. Sudungur was not easily fooled. He seized the dwarves. He bound them tightly. He dragged them to a reef, a treacherous, rocky outcrop. He threatened them with the rising tide. The waves crashed against the rocks. The water crept higher, threatening to engulf them. "Confess," he demanded. "Confess your crimes, or face the ocean's embrace." His voice brooked no argument. His fury was absolute. Fjaller and Galler, their bravado gone, finally broke. They confessed to the murder of Gilling and his wife. Their voices were thin with fear. Sudungur's rage intensified. "What recompense can there be?" he thundered. "What price can you pay for such a heinous act?" The dwarves, desperate, offered their greatest treasure. "We have a mead," they stammered. "A mead of wonders, a mead of wisdom." Sudungur listened, his eyes narrowed. He was skeptical. He knew of their deceit. He knew of their cunning. "Show me," he commanded. "Show me this wonder." He released them, but his gaze remained fixed. He trusted them not at all. The dwarves, trembling, led him to their vats. They unveiled the mead of poetry. It shimmered with an inner light. Its aroma filled the cavern. Sudungur sniffed the air. He felt a strange pull, a sense of immense power, a feeling of profound knowledge. He understood its value. This was no ordinary drink. This was something extraordinary. something truly precious. This, he declared, shall be your blood money. He took possession of the mead. He filled great cauldrons. He carried them away. The dwarves, relieved, watched him go. They had escaped with their lives. They had parted with their treasure, but they were still alive. Sudungar, now the owner of the mead of poetry, journeyed home. He was a giant of immense caution. He knew the value of his prize. He knew others would covet it. Gods and giants alike. This mead was too powerful to be left unguarded, too precious to be lost. He found a mountain, a towering peak named Hnitbjörg. It was remote, it was formidable. It was a fortress of stone and ice. Within its depths, he carved a chamber, a secret vault, a place where the mead would be safe, a place where it would be hidden, and he chose a guardian, his own daughter Gunnlöd. She was strong, she was loyal, she was fierce when provoked. Gunnlöd accepted her duty. She took her place in the mountain. She became the keeper of the mead of poetry. Her life, her purpose, bound to its safety. Sudungar left her there. He sealed the entrance. He placed powerful wards upon it. He trusted no one, only his daughter. And so the mead of poetry rested, deep within Hnitbjörg, guarded by Gunnlöd, a treasure born of darkness, a treasure sought by many. Odin, the Allfather, learned all of this. His ravens returned. His spies reported. The intricate web of deceit unraveled before him. He understood the gravity of the situation. The mead of poetry, the source of all inspiration, was in the hands of a giant who would never willingly surrender it. Sudungar was not a god. He was not bound by the same agreements. He was a creature of might and will. He would defend his prize fiercely. Odin knew he could not approach Sudungar directly. A frontal assault would be folly. It would lead to war. It would lead to destruction. He needed a plan, a cunning strategy, a way to reclaim the mead, not through force, but through guile. He pondered the situation, his brow furrowed in thought. The fate of inspiration, of poetry itself, hung in the balance. He considered every angle, every possibility, every potential pitfall. He was the All-Father. He was the master of wisdom. He knew the journey would be long. He knew it would be perilous. He knew it would require great sacrifice. But the mead of poetry was too important, too vital to the realms. It could not remain hidden. It could not remain tainted. He resolved to act, not with thunder and lightning, not with armies and battles, but with the quiet determination of a true seeker. He would approach Sudungar, but not as Odin, the All-Father. He would approach him in disguise. He would approach him as a humble traveler. He would seek out the knowledge. He would seek out the wisdom. He would seek out the mead of poetry, and he would reclaim it for all. His gaze turned towards the distant mountains, towards Hnitbjörg, towards the hidden chamber, towards Gunnlöd, the guardian. The first step was clear. He would leave Asgard. he would descend to the mortal realms. He would begin his quest. He would embody the spirit of the wanderer, the seeker of knowledge, the one who journeys, the one who learns. His path was set, his purpose firm. The mead of poetry awaited, and Odin, the All-Father, would not rest until it was free. The quiet hum of destiny filled the air. A new chapter was about to begin, a tale of cunning and perseverance, a tale of poetry and power. And so the stage was set. The players were in place. The mead of poetry, born of darkness, awaited its true destiny. Odin prepared himself. His cloak was drawn, his staff grasped firmly, his eyes keen and resolute. The journey would be arduous, the challenges great, but the reward immeasurable, the gift of inspiration for all time. He took a deep breath. The scent of Asgard filled his senses. He would miss it, but his duty called. He stepped forward, into the unknown, into the quest for the mead of poetry. The story continued. The soft dawn light barely touched Jotunheimr as Odin, disguised as Berlverkr, stirred beneath a gnarled oak. The cold, damp air and thin mist clung to the ground as he pulled his simple cloak closer. This land of giants, wild and beautiful, was his destination. He began his quiet journey on the mossy earth. The path, a series of animal trails, wound through dense, towering pine forests. The silence, broken only by a distant raven or rustling creatures, enveloped him. Berlverkr walked steadily, ever watchful of the land's dangers and secrets. Hours passed. The sun climbed, its rays dappling the forest floor where strange, luminous fungi glowed. Weariness settled on Berlverkr's mortal form, yet his resolve for wisdom and power remained firm. He reached a vast clearing. A dark, swift river flowed through it. On the far bank, a small, crude dwelling with smoke curling from its chimney confirmed his destination. Bogga's farm. Berlverkr crossed the river on slippery stones, maintaining his balance with ease. He approached the rough-hewn log dwelling and its unkempt garden. Sounds of struggle and toil, grunts and curses, drifted on the breeze. He saw figures working in a large field of tall hay, ready for harvest. He walked towards them, his pace measured, his disguise flawless. He appeared as a weary traveler with a simple staff and worn clothes, his true identity and divine purpose hidden. 9 of Bogga's thralls toiled in the field, swinging dull scythes awkwardly. Sweat gleamed on their grim, labored faces as they struggled with the thick grass. Berlverkr observed their slow, inefficient efforts. This was his opportunity, a problem he had foreseen. He approached a panting, dirt-streaked thrall. "Good day to you," Berlverkr said calmly. "You seem to be struggling." The thrall grunted, wiping his brow. "The scythes," he wheezed, gesturing to his nicked, blunted blade. "They are useless." Berlverkr nodded sympathetically. "Indeed, a dull blade makes for hard work. Perhaps I can help." The The thrall looked skeptical. "Help, are you a smith?" "No," Berlverker replied with a faint smile. "But I have a knack, a way with metal. I can sharpen any blade." His eyes held a knowing glint. The thralls exchanged glances, tired and desperate. "Show us," another muttered. Berlverker knelt, picked up a scythe, and pulled a smooth, gray whetstone from his pouch. It pulsed with unseen energy. He began to sharpen the blade with fluid, precise movements. A soft hiss and fine sparks filled the air as the dull metal gleamed. The thralls watched in amazement as the blade transformed, becoming impossibly sharp, shimmering and humming faintly with magic. He handed the scythe back. "Try this," he said gently. The thrall took the blade, feeling its perfect balance. He swung it hesitantly, and it sliced through the tall grass with astonishing ease, falling in neat rows. It's like cutting air," he exclaimed in wonder. His companions clamored for their turn. Berlverker obliged, sharpening each scythe quickly and efficiently. Each blade became a masterpiece, honed to perfection. The thralls watched, mesmerized, their weariness replaced by eagerness and greed. "Now," Berlverker said, finishing the last blade and straightening up. His eyes sparkled mischievously. "These blades are very sharp. Be careful with them." He gave a subtle warning, knowing what would unfold. The thralls rushed back to the field, the work suddenly effortless and exhilarating. They moved with renewed vigor and speed, competing to cut the most. But as the sun beat down, a subtle tension grew. Their initial joy faded, replaced by envy and rivalry. Arguments escalated. "Watch where you're swinging," one shouted as another encroached on his row. "I'm just working faster," came the retort, followed by a wild swing. Their movements grew reckless. "You almost took my foot off," a third yelled, dodging a whistling blade. "Then move faster," came the sneering reply. Berlverker watched from a distance, leaning against a tree, his expression neutral. His plan was unfolding perfectly. The thralls' greed consumed them, their tempers flared, and exhaustion made them clumsy and dangerous. The first blow was accidental. A thrall swung too wide, striking his neighbor's arm. A cry of pain pierced the air, and blood bloomed on his sleeve. "You fool," the injured thrall screamed. The other stammered, "I didn't mean to," but it was too late. Violence had begun. Other thralls joined the fray, their anger festering, their frustration boiling over. The sharp scythes became instruments of rage. The field filled with shouts, cries, and the sickening thud of metal on flesh. Berlverker did not intervene, watching with an impassive gaze as the thralls fought among themselves, their blades flashing. Soon the field was silent, save for the wind and a gurgling stream. 9 bodies lay sprawled among the cut grass, their blood staining the earth. The scythes lay innocently beside them. Berlverker walked slowly into the field, surveying the scene. His expression remained unchanged. He had orchestrated this tragedy, a necessary step in his design. He heard approaching footsteps. Boggy, the gruff, weathered giant, was returning, drawn by the commotion. Boggy stopped abruptly at the field's edge, his eyes widening in disbelief at the bodies and blood. His face twisted from shock to fury. "What is this?" he roared, his voice vibrating with anger. "Who has done this?" His gaze fell upon Berlverker, the lone figure amidst the carnage. Berlverker remained calm. "They did it themselves," he said softly, devoid of emotion. "They fought over the sides. They were too sharp, perhaps, and their tempers flared." He gestured to the fallen thralls. Boggy stared, speechless for a moment. Then his fury returned. "My thralls, all of them gone. How am I to harvest my hay now?" Despair washed over him. Berlverker stepped forward, his demeanor sympathetic. "It is a great loss, but perhaps I can offer a solution." Boggy looked up, bleary-eyed. "A solution? My harvest is ruined." "I am a wanderer," Berlverker began slowly, choosing his words carefully. "I seek work. I am strong. I can work your fields. I can cut your hay for a price." Boggy's brow furrowed. Desperate, he asked, "What price?" Berlverker smiled faintly. "I seek passage to the dwelling of your brother, Sudungur. I need to speak with him." He hinted at something precious, the mead of poetry. Boggy's eyes narrowed. "My brother Sudungur, he is a difficult giant." "I have a matter of great importance," Berlverker replied firmly, with subtle authority. "A matter that concerns him, and perhaps a matter that concerns you too. A matter of great value." Boggy hesitated, weighing his options. "You will work my fields alone." "I will," Berlverker affirmed confidently, "until every stalk is cut, until every bale is stacked." Boggy sighed heavily. "Very well. If you can cut my hay, I will take you to Sudungur, but do not expect a warm welcome." He looked at his dead thralls, a fresh wave of sorrow washing over him. Berlverker nodded. "I understand." He had achieved his goal, access and passage. As the sun began its descent, Berlverker picked up a scythe, its blade still gleaming and humming with magic. He began to work with grace and efficiency, the grass falling in perfect rows. Boggy watched, his skepticism fading. This wanderer was indeed capable. Perhaps his harvest would be saved. He did not know the true identity or hidden agenda of his new worker. Berlverker worked through the evening and night, sustained by divine strength and purpose. The field slowly disappeared, replaced by neat piles of cut grass. He thought of the mead of poetry, its wisdom and power. This long, arduous journey, filled with deception, had an immeasurable reward. The first rays of dawn touched the horizon. The field was clear, the hay cut. Berlverker stood amidst the harvested field, weary in his mortal form, but his spirit undaunted. He had fulfilled his end of the bargain. Boggy emerged from his dwelling, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He saw the empty field and neat stacks of hay, his jaw dropping in astonishment. You did it, Boggy stammered, awe in his voice. You cut it all, in one night. Berlverker simply nodded, wiping his brow. I did, now. Take me to your brother. His tone left no room for argument. Boggy, still reeling, could only comply. His fury replaced by grudging respect and a touch of fear. He had made a bargain and had to honor it. The long, perilous journey to Sudunger's dwelling awaited. Berlverker was ready. He had cleared the first obstacle, laid the groundwork. The mead of poetry was within his grasp. The next stage of his cunning plan would unfold. Odin, disguised as Berlverker, was ready to seize the wisdom of the ages. I can do the work, Berlverker stated quietly. His voice was calm. It held no boast. Boggy looked at him closely. He saw no guile. I can do the work of all 9 thralls. Boggy's brows furrowed deeply. 9 thralls, he repeated. His voice held a note of disbelief. That is a summer's work, a season of toil. He gestured to the fields. They stretched far across the valley. It is a task for many strong backs. I am strong, Berlverker replied simply. He met Boggy's gaze steadily. And I am tireless. I will work from dawn until dusk. His words were measured. They promised diligence. I will bring in every harvest. I will mend every fence. A long silence settled between them. The wind rustled through the tall grass. Boggy considered the offer. It seemed impossible. Yet, his need was great. His thralls were gone. His fields lay fallow. Ruin loomed large before him. And what do you ask in return? Boggy finally inquired. His tone was wary. He suspected a trick. Such an offer could not come without a price. What could this stranger truly desire? Berlverker's eyes held a distant gleam. I ask for one thing only, he said softly. His voice was almost a whisper. A single sip of the mead of poetry. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. That is my only desire. Boggy's jaw dropped slightly. He stared at Berlverker. The mead of poetry, he exclaimed. His voice rose in alarm. That mead belongs to Sudunger. My brother guards it fiercely. He shook his head slowly. He would never part with even a drop. That is for us to discover, Berlverker countered smoothly. His expression remained unruffled. You provide the means. I will provide the labor. He extended a hand. Do we have a bargain, Boggy? Boggy hesitated. He ran a hand through his tangled beard. The mead of poetry was a legend. It was a treasure beyond measure. He knew Sudunger's stubborn nature. He knew his brother's greed. Yet, the alternative was starvation. His family would suffer. His lands would wither. If you can do the work of 9 men, Boggy began slowly. He looked out at his desolate fields. If you can bring in the harvest, then I will help you. His voice was low. It was heavy with resignation. I will speak to Sudunger. Berlverker nodded once. Then it is agreed, he stated. His hand clasped Boggy's firmly. The summer will see your fields prosper. A faint, knowing smile touched his lips. And the autumn will see us approach Sudungar. The very next morning, Berlverker began his labor. He rose before the sun. The first light found him already in the fields. He worked with a quiet intensity. His movements were precise. They were tireless. Boggy watched him from his doorway. He saw the sheer effort. He saw the unwavering dedication. Berlverker began with the deepest furrows. He turned the rich earth. The soil yielded to his strength. He sowed the seeds with practiced hands. Each row was perfectly straight. Each seed was carefully placed. The sun climbed higher. He did not falter. Days turned into weeks. The spring rains came. Berlverker worked through the downpours. He mended the broken fences. He cleared the choked irrigation ditches. His clothes were often mud-stained. His face was tanned by the sun. Yet, his resolve never wavered. Boggy observed him closely. He saw the impossible made real. Berlverker's strength seemed boundless. His endurance was legendary. The fields, once neglected, began to thrive. Green shoots emerged from the earth. The promise of a bountiful harvest grew with each passing day. The summer deepened. The sun beat down fiercely. Berlverker continued his relentless work. He weeded the rows meticulously. He tended to the growing crops. He seemed to need little rest. He consumed simple meals. He drank cool, clear water. Boggy's initial skepticism slowly faded. He began to trust Berlverker. The stranger was true to his word. He was transforming the landscape. He was saving Boggy's livelihood. A quiet respect grew between the two men. It was born of shared labor. It was forged in the heat of the sun. As the grain ripened, Berlverker's efforts intensified. He worked longer hours. He harvested the golden stalks. He threshed the grain. The sound of his flail echoed across the valley. It was a rhythmic, tireless beat. It was the sound of prosperity returning. The granaries began to fill. Boggy watched in amazement. They overflowed with the summer's bounty. It was more than he had ever hoped for. It was more than his 9 thralls had ever achieved. Berlverker had delivered on his promise. He had done the work of many men. The days grew shorter. The leaves on the trees began to turn. Autumn's crisp air filled the valley. The harvest was complete. The fields lay golden and rich. Berlverker stood before Boggy. His face was calm. His eyes held a quiet expectation. The work is done, Boggy, Berlverker stated. His voice was steady. The harvest is gathered. Your granaries are full. He gestured to the overflowing barns. Your lands are restored. Boggy nodded slowly. A deep gratitude filled him. You have truly earned your request, Berlverker, he said sincerely. His voice was thick with emotion. You have saved my family. You have saved my farm. He looked at Berlverker with admiration. I owe you a great debt. The debt is the meed of poetry, Berlverker reminded him gently. There was no harshness in his tone. Now, we must speak with Sudungar. His gaze was steadfast. The time has come. Bogge's expression clouded slightly. The memory of his brother's stubbornness resurfaced. He will not part with it easily, Bogge warned. His voice was filled with doubt. He guards it with his very life. He sighed heavily. He will surely refuse us. We must try, Bogge, Berlverker insisted. His voice held a quiet determination. You gave your word. I fulfilled my end of the bargain. He looked at Bogge expectantly. Will you now falter? Bogge looked away. He ran a hand over his tired face. He had promised. He had sworn to help. Berlverker had done so much. He could not refuse him now. Shame would be his companion. Dishonor would stain his name. No, Bogge said finally. His voice was firm. I will not falter. I will stand by my word. He straightened his shoulders. We will go to Sudungur. We will speak with him. He still felt a tremor of fear. Yet he would face it. Good, Berlverker replied. A subtle shift occurred in his demeanor. A glint of satisfaction appeared in his eyes. Then, let us prepare for the journey. He paused, a faint smile playing on his lips. Sudungur will be convinced. Bogge felt a chill despite the warmth of the day. He wondered at Berlverker's unwavering confidence. How could he be so sure? Sudungur was formidable. He was unyielding. Yet, Berlverker had proven himself capable of the impossible. Perhaps, just perhaps, he could achieve this too. They spent the next few days preparing. Bogge gathered provisions. Berlverker sharpened his tools. He spoke little of the coming confrontation. He simply waited. His patience was remarkable. His focus was absolute. Bogge, however, fretted. He imagined the arguments. He pictured Sudungur's angry face. He knew his brother's possessive nature. The mead of poetry was his most prized possession. He would guard it fiercely. He would defend it with his life. Sudungur lives deep within the mountain, Bogge explained one evening. His voice was hushed. He keeps the mead in H. Nitbjörg, the crag of protection. He shivered slightly. It is a fortress of stone. Berlverker listened intently. He absorbed every detail. He asked precise questions. Are there guards? He inquired. What are the defenses? His questions were strategic. They were planning a siege. He has no guards, Bogge replied. He trusts the mountain itself. He paused. But he has a daughter Gunlurth. His voice softened slightly. She watches over the mead too. Berlverker's eyes narrowed slightly. A new element entered the equation. A daughter. This was unexpected. He filed the information away. It might be useful. It might change his approach. The day of their departure arrived. The autumn air was crisp. The sky was a brilliant blue. Bogge felt a knot of dread in his stomach. Berlverker, however, seemed calm. He was ready. He was resolute. They set off for the mountain. The path was winding. It led through dense forests. Bogge walked with a heavy heart. He knew the futility of their mission. Yet, he was bound by his word. Berlverker walked beside him. His stride was steady. He observed the landscape. He seemed to be taking everything in. His mind was already at work. He was devising his strategy. As they approached the mountain, its sheer size became apparent. It loomed before them. Its peaks were sharp. Its slopes were steep. Nitbjörg was a formidable stronghold. It was a place of secrets. Boggy pointed to a distant crevice. "That is the entrance," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "It is narrow. It is treacherous." He shook his head slowly. "Only one can pass at a time." Berlverker studied the entrance. He noted its defenses. He saw the challenge. A faint smile touched his lips once more. This was not merely a request. This was a conquest. They continued their ascent. The air grew colder. The silence of the mountain was profound. Boggy felt increasingly apprehensive. Berlverker, however, seemed to thrive. His energy was unwavering. They reached the crevice. It was indeed narrow. It was dark. It seemed to swallow the light. Boggy hesitated. "Are you certain, Berlverker?" he asked one last time. His voice was filled with doubt. "Are you certain we can persuade him?" "I am certain, Boggy," Berlverker replied calmly. His eyes held a resolute gleam. "The mead of poetry will be ours." His voice was low. It held an unshakable conviction. "Sudunger will yield." Boggy took a deep breath. He steeled himself. He had come this far. He would see it through. He stepped into the darkness of the crevice. Berlverker followed close behind him. The mountain closed around them. Their journey into the heart of Nitbjörg had begun. The confrontation with Sudunger awaited, and with it, the fate of the mead of poetry. The journey to Nitbjörg was long. Boggy led the way, his steps heavy. Odin, disguised as Berlverker, walked beside him. A silence settled between them. Only the wind whispered through the trees. They arrived at last. Nitbjörg loomed, a dark, imposing mountain. Its peaks touched the clouds. Boggy pointed to a hidden cave. "Sudunger dwells there," he murmured, "with the mead." Odin nodded slowly. His eyes scanned the mountain. He noted its strength. He felt its ancient stillness. This would not be easy. They approached the cave entrance. It was a gaping maw. Shadows stretched deep within. A low growl rumbled from inside. Sudunger was home. Boggy hesitated at the entrance. "Are you certain?" he whispered. "Sudunger is fierce." Odin merely looked at him. His gaze was steady. "We have a deal," Odin reminded him. His voice was calm. Boggy sighed. He stepped forward. Odin followed close behind. The cave was vast and cold. Stone walls dripped with moisture. The air was thick with the scent of earth. A flickering torch cast long shadows. It illuminated Sudunger. The giant sat on a rough-hewn throne. His eyes were like embers. They glowed in the dim light. Two large vats stood beside him. They shimmered with golden liquid, the mead of poetry. "Who dares disturb my slumber?" Sudunger boomed. His voice echoed through the cave. It vibrated in their bones. He rose slowly from his throne. His size was immense. Boggy swallowed hard. He stepped forward. "Brother," he began. His voice wavered slightly. "We have come to ask a favor." Sudunger merely stared at him. His expression was stern. "A favor?" Sudunger scoffed. He gestured to the vats. "You speak of my precious mead." His hand closed into a fist. "It is mine alone." Odin stepped forward then. He bowed slightly. "Great Sudunger," he said. His voice was respectful. "We have heard of your wisdom." Sudunger narrowed his eyes. "And your generosity," Odin continued. "We seek but a small portion." Sudunger laughed then. It was a harsh, booming sound. It reverberated through the cave. "Generosity," Sudunger sneered. "This mead is my lifeblood." He pounded a fist on his throne. Stone dust flew into the air. "It is not for sharing." "Not even with your own brother," Boggy pleaded. His voice was strained. Sudunger turned his gaze on Boggy. His eyes glittered with disdain. "Especially not with you," Sudunger growled. "You have always been weak." He gestured dismissively. "Now begone from my sight." Odin remained calm. He had expected this. Sudunger's possessiveness was legendary. This was merely the first step. His plan was already adapting. "We understand your reluctance," Odin said smoothly. "But perhaps there is another way." Sudunger glared at him. "There is no other way. We offer a trade," Odin proposed. "Something of equal value." Sudunger merely shook his head. "Nothing is of equal value." "Then we shall leave," Odin said. He turned to Boggy. "Come, brother, our efforts are wasted here." Boggy looked crestfallen. He had hoped. Sudunger watched them. A flicker of suspicion crossed his face. "You leave so easily?" he questioned. "After coming so far." "We respect your wishes," Odin replied. His tone was even. "The mead is yours. We shall not press the matter." He began to walk away. Boggy followed. His shoulders slumped. He felt defeated. This was not how it was supposed to go. Odin had promised him a way. They reached the cave entrance. The cool mountain air embraced them. Odin stopped. He turned to Boggy. A faint smile touched his lips. "Our agreement still stands," Odin said quietly. Boggy looked at him, confused. "But he refused," Boggy mumbled. "He will never share." "Indeed," Odin agreed. "Which means we must take it." Boggy's eyes widened. "Take it," he repeated. "How?" Odin gestured to the mountain. H. Nitbjörg stood silent. Its stone heart held the mead. "We go around him," Odin explained. "Not through him." "Around?" Boggy questioned. "What do you mean?" Odin's gaze was piercing. "You will drill a hole," he stated, "through the mountain." Boggy gasped. His jaw dropped. "Drill a hole," he exclaimed. "Through H. Nitbjörg. It is impossible." The mountain was solid rock. "Nothing is impossible," Odin corrected. "For a giant of your strength." He looked at Boggy expectantly. "You are a master of the drill." Boggy hesitated. His brow furrowed. "It would take ages," he protested, "and immense effort." He was a farmer, not a miner. But the reward, Odin reminded him. The meed of poetry. He spoke of their agreement. Your share awaits. Boggy considered it. The mead, the promise of wisdom. It was a powerful lure. He had worked hard. He had earned his part. But this task was daunting. Where would I drill? Boggy asked. His voice was reluctant. Odin pointed to a specific spot. It was a narrow crevice. It was almost hidden. There, Odin instructed, a small hole, just large enough for me. Boggy looked at the spot. It was solid rock. It looked impenetrable. I do not have the tools, Boggy confessed. Not for this. Odin smiled. He reached into his cloak. He pulled out a drill. It was a magnificent tool. Its tip gleamed. It was crafted from the finest steel. It looked impossibly sharp. It hummed with power. This is Ratty, Odin explained. A gift from the dwarves. He handed it to Boggy. It will make the task easier. Boggy took the drill. It was heavy in his hands. He felt its power. A sense of awe filled him. This was no ordinary tool. This was magic. Now, Odin said, to work, Boggy sighed. He looked at the mountain. He looked at the drill. He had no choice. He raised the drill. He pressed its tip to the rock. He began to turn it. The metal bit into the stone. A faint scratching sound filled the air. Hours passed. Boggy drilled tirelessly. Sweat beaded on his brow. His muscles ached. The mountain was stubborn, but Ratty was strong. Dust filled the air. Small chips of rock flew. A tiny hole began to form. It grew deeper, slowly. Boggy worked with grim determination. Odin watched him. He offered encouragement. He spoke of the mead. He spoke of its power. He kept Boggy focused. Finally, Boggy stopped. He pulled the drill out. He wiped his brow. It is deep enough, he declared. His voice was tired. Odin walked over. He looked at the hole. It was narrow. It was dark. He reached for his staff. Gungnir, his trusty spear. He inserted the tip of Gungnir into the hole. It slid in smoothly. But then it stopped. It did not go all the way through. Odin looked at Boggy. His eyes were knowing. It is not deep enough, Odin stated. Boggy shifted uncomfortably. It is, Boggy insisted. It goes far. He tried to sound convincing, but his gaze darted away. He had tried to trick Odin. He had drilled only partway. He had hoped Odin would not notice. He had hoped to avoid more work. He had hoped to save himself. Odin shook his head. You try to deceive me, he said calmly. His voice was low, but it held a hint of steel. Boggy flinched. Our agreement, Odin reminded him. A hole all the way through. He tapped the staff. This does not reach. Boggy swallowed hard. He knew he was caught. Odin's gaze was unwavering. He felt a chill. This was not a man to cross. I thought it would be enough, Boggy stammered. For you to see. Odin merely raised an eyebrow. His expression was stern. Drill deeper, Odin commanded. His voice was firm now. All the way through, or our deal is off. Boggy's heart sank. He picked up Ratty again. He pressed it to the rock. He began to drill once more. His movements were slower now. He was defeated. He drilled with renewed effort. The rock resisted, but Ratty bit deeper. He pushed through the layers. He felt the mountain yield. He drilled until his arms ached. He drilled until his back protested. He drilled until he felt a slight give. A breakthrough. "I think," he gasped. "I think it is through." He pulled the drill out. He stepped back. He was exhausted. Odin walked over again. He took Gungnir. He inserted its tip into the hole. It slid in smoothly. It went all the way through. A faint light shone through the other side. A tiny pinprick of brightness. It was done. The hole was drilled. Odin nodded. A satisfied smile touched his lips. "Well done, Boggy," he said. His voice was warm now. "You have fulfilled your part." Boggy slumped to the ground. He was utterly spent, but a sense of relief washed over him. He had done it. The mead was within reach. "Now," Odin said. He looked at the small hole. "The next step." Boggy looked up at him. "What now?" he mumbled. Odin's eyes gleamed with anticipation. His plan was unfolding. The mead of poetry was almost his. He leaned closer to the hole. He peered into its depths. He could almost taste the mead. Its power beckoned him. Its wisdom called to him. "Now," Odin whispered, "I enter." Boggy stared at him. "Through that tiny hole," he exclaimed. It seemed impossible. Odin merely smiled. His form shimmered. He began to change. His disguise as Berlverker began to fade. Boggy watched in awe. Odin's true form began to emerge. His majestic presence filled the air. Boggy gasped. He knew then. This was no ordinary man. This was a god. This was Odin, the Allfather himself. Boggy felt a tremor of fear and a profound respect. Odin's eyes, now keen and bright, looked at the hole. He was ready. He had waited long for this moment. The mead was his destiny. He looked at Boggy one last time. "Wait here," he instructed. His voice was resonant. "Your share will come." Boggy nodded mutely. He could only stare. The revelation of Odin's true identity was overwhelming. He watched as Odin prepared. Odin took a deep breath. He focused his will. He began to transform. He became small. He became agile. He became a serpent. A tiny, shimmering serpent. It was green and gold. It was sleek and swift. It was ready to enter the mountain. Boggy watched in stunned silence. The serpent coiled. It slithered towards the hole. It was a remarkable sight. The serpent paused at the entrance. It looked back at Boggy. Its eyes held an ancient wisdom, a promise. Then, with a final flick of its tail, the serpent entered the hole. It disappeared into the darkness, into the heart of Hnitbjörg. Boggy was left alone with the silent mountain and the knowledge of what had just transpired. He had helped Odin. He had helped the Allfather. He had drilled the path. He had opened the way to the mead of poetry. Now he could only wait for Odin to return, for his share of the wisdom, for the promise of the mead. The sun began to set. The sky turned to hues of orange and purple. A cool breeze swept through the valley. Boggy sat and waited. He listened to the silence of the mountain. He listened for any sound, any sign of Odin, any sign of the mead. The stars began to appear, one by one. They twinkled in the darkening sky. The night grew deep. Still, Boggy waited. He wondered what was happening inside, what Odin was doing, how he would get the mead, how he would escape Sudungur. A sense of unease settled over him. He had helped Odin, but what if Sudungur discovered it? What if he was blamed? He shivered. The air grew colder. He wrapped his arms around himself. He looked at the small hole. It was a portal to wisdom, a portal to danger, a portal to the unknown. He could only hope that Odin would succeed, and that he would keep his word, that Boggy would receive his promised share, the mead of poetry, his ultimate desire. He closed his eyes. The fatigue weighed heavily. He tried to imagine the taste of the mead, the wisdom it would bring. He drifted into a restless sleep, dreaming of golden liquid, dreaming of ancient knowledge, dreaming of the mead of poetry. The stone dust swirled. It danced in the faint light. Odin, in his eagle form, watched it settle. This was the moment. His eyes, keen and bright, fixed on the raw opening. The passage yawned. It promised a hidden world. His heart, a steady drum, beat with anticipation. He hovered there for just a breath. The air grew still. A transformation began. His feathers shimmered. They dissolved like morning mist. His form began to shift. It elongated. It narrowed. A sleek emerald green appeared. Scales unfurled. They caught the dim light. A serpentine head emerged. It was regal. It was cunning. Odin, now a serpent, was magnificent. His eyes, though reptilian, held ancient wisdom. He was not a creature of fear. He was a creature of purpose. His body, long and powerful, coiled. It tested the air. A low, hissing sound escaped him. It was a whisper of power. It was a promise of success. He approached the opening. It seemed small now. He was a great serpent, but he was also fluid. He was adaptable. He began to slither. His scales scraped against the rough rock. A soft, continuous rasp filled the silence. It was a sound of slow, determined progress. The hole was tight. It was a snug fit. His body pressed against the stone. He felt the ancient earth. It embraced him. He pushed forward, inch by slow inch. The darkness deepened around him. He was entering the mountain's heart. He was entering the unknown. His muscles rippled. They propelled him onward. The passage twisted. It turned. He navigated each curve. His senses were alive. He tasted the air. He felt the vibrations. He listened to the mountain's breath. It was a deep, resonant hum. He moved silently. He moved with grace. The journey was long. It was arduous. But Odin was patient. He was resolute. His goal lay ahead. The mead of poetry waited. He could almost taste its wisdom. He could almost feel its magic. Finally, the passage widened. A faint glow appeared. It was a soft, ethereal light. He pushed through the last tight squeeze. His head emerged into a vast space. It was a cavern. It was magnificent. The air felt different here. It was heavy. It was ancient. He uncoiled slowly. His body stretched out. He took in his surroundings. The cavern was immense. Its ceiling soared high above. It was adorned with glittering crystals. They reflected the soft light. The walls gleamed. They were smooth. They were polished. This was Hnitbjörg. This was the mountain's core. The air hummed with power. It was a palpable energy. It resonated deep within him. He felt the presence of something sacred, something profound. This was a place of deep magic. In the center of the cavern, a pool shimmered. It was not water. It was liquid gold. It pulsed with an inner light. This was the mead of poetry. Its glow illuminated the cavern. It cast long, dancing shadows. The air around it vibrated. Guarding the mead, a figure stood. She was imposing. She was majestic. This was Gunnlöð, daughter of Sudungur. Her presence filled the cavern. She was a giantess, but she moved with grace. She moved with purpose. Her hair was like spun moonlight. It cascaded down her back. It was long. It was flowing. Her eyes, keen and watchful, scanned the cavern. They missed nothing. Her expression was serene, but it held immense power. She was a formidable guardian. She wore robes of deep emerald. They flowed around her. They were adorned with intricate patterns. They seemed to shimmer. She held a staff. It was carved from ancient wood. Its tip glowed faintly. It pulsed with a calm, steady light. Odin, in his serpent form, was hidden. He was small against the vastness. He was nearly invisible. He watched her. He studied her movements. He observed her vigilance. She was attentive. She was unwavering. He remained still. He was a shadow amongst shadows. He assessed the situation. Direct confrontation was not his way. Not now. Not yet. Cunning was his tool. Subtlety was his strength. He needed to approach her. He needed to gain her trust. He began to move, slowly, imperceptibly. He slithered along the cavern floor. His scales made no sound. He was a whisper of movement. He was a ripple in the shadows. He used the cavern's features. He used the crystals. He used the ancient rock formations. He moved closer to the pool. The mead radiated warmth. It radiated wisdom. He felt its pull. It was an irresistible force. Its scent was intoxicating. It was sweet. It was ancient. It was the essence of all knowledge. Gunnlöð stood near the pool. Her gaze was fixed on the mead. Her concentration was absolute. She was a statue of vigilant protection. Her hand rested on the staff. Her posture was relaxed. But she was ready. She was always ready. Odin continued his approach. He moved like smoke. He moved like a dream. He circled the periphery. He sought an opening, a moment of distraction, a fleeting lapse in her guard. He was patient. He was endlessly patient. He noticed a small crevice. It was in the cavern wall. It was nearly hidden. It led behind a large crystal formation. He slithered towards it. His body was lithe. It was flexible. He squeezed into the opening. From this vantage point, he observed her. He was closer now. He could see the intricate details of her robes. He could feel the power she exuded. She was a being of immense strength and deep purpose. He waited. Time seemed to stretch. It bent. It flowed. He was a coiled spring. He was ready to act, but he waited for the perfect moment, the most opportune instant. He knew it would come. It always did. Gunlarth sighed softly. It was a sound of weariness, a sound of endless duty. She shifted her weight. Her eyes, for a fleeting moment, drifted. They swept across the cavern. They paused on the crystalline ceiling. This was his chance. It was a small window, but it was enough. He emerged from the crevice. He moved with swiftness. He moved with precision. He slithered towards her. He was a flash of green, a blur of motion. He was beside her. Almost. He was at her feet. She did not stir. Her gaze was still fixed upwards. He coiled around her ankle. Gently, subtly. His scales were cool against her skin. He was a silent presence. She tensed. Her eyes dropped. They landed on him. There was no fear in them, only surprise, and a flicker of curiosity. She saw him, the serpent, small, harmless looking, but with eyes that held ancient depth. He met her gaze. His eyes, though reptilian, conveyed a message. It was a plea. It was a request. He was not a threat. He was a seeker. He was a traveler. He was a humble creature. Gunlarth knelt. Her movement was graceful. She extended a hand. Her fingers were long. They were delicate. She did not flinch. She was unafraid. She was a guardian, but she was also compassionate. He uncoiled from her ankle. He moved onto her palm. His body rested there. He was warm. He was smooth. He looked up at her. His head tilted slightly. He was a curious, silent visitor. She studied him. Her gaze was intense. She saw beyond his form. She saw the ancient wisdom in his eyes. She felt the subtle power emanating from him. She knew he was no ordinary serpent. A low murmur escaped her lips. It was a question. It was soft. It was melodic. "Who are you, tiny one?" she asked. Her voice was like wind chimes. It was soothing. It was resonant. Odin, in his serpent form, could not speak, but he communicated through his eyes, through his presence. He conveyed his need, his desire for the mead, not for greed, but for knowledge, for wisdom. She understood. She was a guardian of wisdom. She recognized its pursuit. Her eyes, though still watchful, softened further. She considered him. She considered his silent plea. She rose to her feet. She carried him in her palm. She walked towards the pool of mead. The golden liquid shimmered. It beckoned. It pulsed with living light. She looked at the mead, then at him. A decision was made. It was swift. It was intuitive. She would allow him a taste, a small measure, for the wisdom in his eyes, for the purity of his quest. She reached for a small, carved ladle. It rested beside the pool. It was made of polished bone. She dipped it into the golden liquid. The mead clung to it. It glowed. She held the ladle before him. The scent was overwhelming. It was divine. It promised all knowledge, all understanding. He felt a surge of ancient power. It hummed through his serpentine form. He extended his head. He took a tiny sip. The taste was exquisite. It was beyond words. It was warmth. It was light. It was the essence of creation. It flowed through him. It ignited his mind. A small tremor ran through his body. It was not of fear. It was of profound understanding. He felt the knowledge expanding within him. It was immense. It was boundless. Gunlarth watched him. A faint smile touched her lips. She saw the transformation. She saw the light in his eyes. She understood the depth of his need and his worthiness. She offered him another sip, and another. 3 times he drank. Each sip was a universe. Each drop was an eternity. The mead was not diminished. Its magic was endless. He felt complete. He felt empowered. The wisdom of ages filled him. He was no longer just a serpent. He was a vessel, a channel for divine knowledge. He was Odin, renewed, reborn. He looked at Gunlarth. His gratitude was immense. It radiated from him. She had given him a gift, a sacred trust. He would honor it. He would share it for the good of all. She nodded. Her understanding was clear. She knew his purpose. She knew his destiny. She had played her part. She had been the guardian and the giver. He uncoiled from her palm. He returned to the cavern floor. He turned to face her. He bowed his head. It was a gesture of deep respect, a silent farewell. He began to move towards the passage, the one he had used to enter. It still yawned. It still beckoned. His journey was not yet over. His task was not yet complete. Gunlarth watched him go. Her gaze was steady. Her presence was unwavering. She was the guardian of the sacred, the protector of wisdom. Her duty continued. Odin, the serpent, entered the passage. His body now pulsed with inner light. The mead flowed within him. It was a river of knowledge, a current of inspiration. He slithered through the darkness. The journey was easier now. He was guided by the light within. He was propelled by newfound power. He was returning to the world outside. The rough rock felt different. It was no longer a barrier. It was a passage, a pathway. He moved with speed. He moved with purpose. He was driven by a sacred mission. He emerged from the hole. The crisp air met him, the faint light of the world outside. He was back. He was transformed. He was ready. His journey was nearing its end. He paused for a moment. He looked back at the mountain. H. Nitbjörg stood silent. It held its secret. It held its magic. He carried a piece of it now. Within him, he was no longer a serpent. The transformation began again. Scales dissolved. A new form emerged. Feathers unfurled. A powerful eagle, majestic, resplendent. He soared into the sky. The mead pulsed within him. He was a beacon, a source of light. He flew towards the world, towards his destiny, towards the sharing of wisdom. The stars began to twinkle. They appeared one by one. The night deepened, but a new dawn was coming. A dawn of knowledge, a dawn of poetry, all thanks to his journey. He flew onward, the wind beneath his wings, the mead in his heart, a silent promise, a sacred trust. The story was unfolding. The legend was being born. The world below slept, unaware of the magic, unaware of the journey. But soon it would know. Soon it would hear the songs of wisdom, the verses of truth. He was the bringer. He was the giver. He was Odin, and the mead of poetry, a gift for all, a light in the darkness, a story that would echo through time. His flight was strong. His purpose was clear. The tale continued. The night unfolded, and dreams began to stir, filled with ancient whispers and gleaming light. Odin, shedding his disguise, stood tall and compelling. The illusion of the weary traveler melted away like mist before the sun, revealing a figure of commanding presence. His broad shoulders, once stooped, now held an invisible weight of ancient wisdom and power. His eyes, previously veiled by the disguise, now gleamed with an intensity that seemed to penetrate the very rock of the cavern. A subtle scent of frost, sharp and clean like mountain air, clung to him. A faint whisper of Jotunheim, the icy realm from which he had journeyed. Startled, Gunnlöd stepped back, a blush rising, painting her pale cheeks with a sudden warmth. The cavern, usually echoing with only the drip of water and the hum of the mead, now seemed to thrum with a new, vibrant energy, vibrating with the sudden shift in the air, a silent acknowledgement of the divine presence within its ancient walls. My lady, Odin's voice, was a low murmur, a sound like distant thunder, yet woven with unexpected gentleness. It resonated deep within her, stirring an unfamiliar flutter in her chest. You are as radiant as the dawn. He offered a gentle smile, not the cunning smirk she might have expected from a trickster god, but one of genuine admiration, crinkling the corners of his eyes. Gunnlöd rarely heard such compliments. Her life had been a solitary vigil, her days marked by the quiet guardianship of the sacred mead, her nights by the lonely echoes of the cavern. Words of beauty and grace were foreign to her ears. You are not the one I expected, she whispered, her voice barely audible above the newfound hum of the cavern. Her heart, usually a steady drum, began to flutter wildly, like a trapped bird. The very air around her seemed to thicken, charged with an unspoken tension, an undeniable pull. Odin took a step closer, his movement fluid and unhurried, like a great predator stalking its prey, yet imbued with an almost reverent slowness. The subtle scent of frost grew stronger, mingling with the sweet, yeasty aroma of the mead. "Perhaps fate has a different plan," he suggested, his gaze unwavering, holding hers captive. He extended a hand, his fingers long and strong, etched with the faint lines of ancient runes. "I have journeyed long, Gunlarth. My quest has been arduous, fraught with peril and sacrifice. I have crossed mountains shrouded in eternal snows, traversed plains where bitter winds howl, and navigated the treacherous currents of the cosmic sea." Gunlarth hesitated, her eyes fixed on his outstretched hand, a hand that seemed to promise both solace and an unknowable destiny. The rough texture of the cavern walls, usually so familiar and comforting, now felt alien beneath her fingertips as she unconsciously gripped them. "Why have you come here?" she asked, her voice a breathy whisper, barely more than a sigh. The mead of poetry, its golden surface shimmering with an internal light, gleamed behind her, a silent, potent witness to this unexpected encounter. Its very presence seemed to pulse with an ancient magic, beckoning him. Odin's gaze drifted from her face, momentarily drawn to the three colossal vats that stood like silent sentinels in the cavern's heart. Athorir, Bothan, and San, the very vessels of inspiration and wisdom. A flicker of something akin to hunger, raw and undeniable, passed through his eyes. "I seek wisdom, Gunlarth," he replied, returning his attention to her, his gaze softening. "I find it here, in your presence, in the very air that hums with the magic you protect." His words were a balm, soothing the initial shock, replacing it with a curious warmth. Gunlarth felt that warmth spread through her, a blush creeping higher on her neck. Her solitary existence had taught her to be wary, yet his words, spoken with such earnestness, chipped away at her defenses. "This place is lonely," she admitted, the truth of her isolated life spilling out, unbidden. The cavern, though vast and filled with the scent of creation, had always been a silent companion, a beautiful cage. "My vigil is endless. Day turns to night, and night to day, and still I sit, guarding what others desire, but cannot reach." A faint echo of her own voice seemed to linger in the air, a testament to her isolation. Odin nodded, his expression one of profound understanding. "Loneliness is a heavy cloak, my lady, woven with threads of silence and solitude. It can weigh down the spirit, dim the brightest light." He took another gentle step, closing the space between them until only a breath separated them. But what if that cloak could be shed? Even for a little while. As he spoke, he gently brushed her fingers, a feather-light touch that sent a jolt, not of fear, but of an unfamiliar yearning through her. His skin was cool, like polished stone, yet the touch ignited a spark within her. Gunlarth did not pull away. Her senses were overwhelmed, the scent of frost and mead, the low murmur of his voice, the warmth spreading through her veins. "What do you propose?" she asked, a new tremor in her voice, a fragile hope blossoming in her chest. The cavern seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his answer. Odin's smile deepened, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift that spoke of ancient knowledge and carefully laid plans. A flash of triumph, quick as lightning, flickered in his eyes, but it was gone before Gunlarth could fully grasp its meaning. Instead, his gaze held hers, direct and compelling. "I propose companionship, Gunlarth, for 3 nights. 3 nights of stories, of shared silence, of respite from your endless vigil. And in return for each night, you grant me a single sip of the mead of poetry." His voice was a silken promise, weaving itself around her like an irresistible spell. Gunlarth's eyes widened, her initial fear replaced by a bewildered surprise. "A single sip," she repeated, the words tasting strange on her tongue. It seemed too modest, too easily given for such a powerful boon. The mead was the very essence of inspiration, guarded fiercely by her father, Sudung, who would surely demand her life for even a drop. Yet, Odin spoke of a mere sip. Odin nodded, his expression unwavering, his eyes holding hers with an almost hypnotic intensity. "Just a taste, my lady, a mere droplet to quench a deep and ancient thirst for knowledge. I swear upon the ancient stars, upon the very roots of Yggdrasil itself, Gunlarth. Only 1 sip for each night. No more. My word is my bond, sealed by the cosmic energies of the universe." His voice was solemn, imbued with the weight of ages, a pledge that seemed unbreakable. Gunlarth considered his words, her mind a whirlwind of doubt and longing. The thought of companionship, even for 3 nights, was a temptation she had never dared to imagine. Her existence had been one of unwavering duty, devoid of warmth or shared moments. And a single sip, her father's wrath, though fearsome, seemed a distant threat compared to the sudden, overwhelming desire for connection. The lure of conversation, of stories from the vast world beyond her cavern, proved irresistible. "Very well," she agreed, the words escaping her lips before she could truly reconsider. 3 nights, 3 sips. The cavern seemed to sigh, a collective breath released, as if it too had been waiting for her decision. Odin's smile widened, a true, unbridled flash of triumph, now undeniable in his eyes. The light in the cavern seemed to intensify, reflecting the subtle shift in his aura. His plan, meticulously crafted over eons, was unfolding precisely as he had envisioned. The first night began. The cavern, usually silent save for the drip of water, filled with the rich timbre of Odin's voice. True to his word, he spoke, not of demands or desires, but of wonders. He told her tales of the 9 worlds, his words painting vivid tapestries in the air, of shimmering Bifrost, the rainbow bridge arching between realms, its colors shifting and dancing, of the world tree, Yggdrasil, its mighty branches reaching to the heavens, its roots delving into the deepest abysses, connecting all existence. He spoke of cosmic battles fought in the dawn of time, of ancient gods and primordial giants, of the creation of stars and the forging of mountains. Gunlurth listened, utterly captivated, her heart swelling with a mixture of awe and wonder. She had never heard such stories, never imagined the vastness of the cosmos beyond her stone dwelling. He spoke of poetry's power, not merely as words, but as the very essence of creation, the deep magic woven into the fabric of everything. The rustle of leaves, the roar of the ocean, the silent dance of the constellations. He described the poets of Midgard, those mortals touched by inspiration, their words shaping reality, healing wounds, and igniting courage. Their conversation flowed like a gentle river, weaving through the hours, punctuated by the soft glow of the mead and the quiet breathing of Gunlurth, who felt a strange, intoxicating lightness she had never known. The air, usually cool, now felt warm and alive, as if the very stones were listening. As the first night ended, the pre-dawn light, a delicate silver gray, began to filter through the cavern's entrance, painting the rough stone walls with a faint, ethereal glow. The outside world, so long a distant concept, felt closer, tangible. "It is time, my lady," Odin said, his voice still resonant, but now tinged with a subtle shift, a barely perceptible urgency. He gestured to Otherweir, the first vat, its golden contents shimmering invitingly in the nascent light. "My first sip." Gunlurth, still mesmerized by the tales, moved as if in a dream. She fetched an ornate cup carved from horn and inlaid with polished stones, a vessel usually reserved for the most sacred rituals. With trembling hands, she dipped it into the gleaming surface of Otherweir, filling it to the brim. The liquid within, thick and luminous, seemed to pulse with a life of its own. She offered it to Odin, her hand extended, her eyes still holding the wonder of his stories. He took the cup, his fingers brushing hers again, sending another jolt through her. But instead of drinking, he set the cup aside on a nearby stone, its contents forgotten. His gaze, now sharp and predatory, fixed on the vat itself. The air in the cavern seemed to thicken, the earlier warmth replaced by a sudden chill that snaked its way up Gunlurth's spine. "My thirst," he said, his voice low, a deep rumble that vibrated through the very bedrock, "is profound." The word hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. His eyes, previously kind, now held a glint of something ancient and insatiable. Before Gunlurth could fully process his words, before the dawning realization could fully bloom in her mind, he reached for the vat itself. His hands, no longer gentle, closed around the massive vessel, their grip firm and possessive. The faint scent of frost intensified, a sharp, cold tang that cut through the sweetness of the mead. Gunlurth watched, her eyes wide with dawning realization, a cold dread blossoming in her stomach. This was not a sip. This was not the gentle, modest request he had sworn upon the stars. This was something far greater, far more terrifying. A silent scream caught in her throat. With a deep, guttural gulp, Odin tipped the entire vat. Otherweir, the immense vessel holding the very essence of poetic inspiration, began to empty. The golden liquid flowed, not in sips, but in a torrent, a river of light, down his throat. The sound was deafening in the cavern, a gurgling, rushing roar as the precious mead poured into him, a sound that seemed to drown out the very beat of Gunlarth's heart. She gasped, a small, strangled sound lost in the deluge. The mead poured into him in torrents, a golden waterfall cascading into an endless void. The air pulsed with the transfer of power, the very fabric of reality seeming to warp and shimmer around him. Athrorir, the first sacred vat, was drained completely, its golden contents vanishing into the Allfather. The cavern echoed with the final, sickening slurp as the last drop was consumed. When Odin lowered the vat, it was empty, a hollow shell. He stood, a subtle tremor running through him, not of weakness, but of immense power surging and settling within his being. His chest expanded, his skin seemed to glow faintly, and the air around him crackled with an invisible energy. Gunlarth stared, speechless, her mind reeling. Deception. A cold, hard knot of betrayal formed in her stomach. He had promised sips. He had taken everything. Every word, every shared moment, every gentle touch, now felt like a calculated lie, part of a grand, cruel charade. Odin met her gaze, his eyes now shimmering with an unholy light, reflecting the golden glow of the mead he had consumed. A faint, knowing smile touched his lips, a smile that held no apology, only the satisfaction of a master strategist. A very large sip, he murmured, his voice deeper, resonant with newfound power, a sound that now truly echoed with the thunder of the cosmos. He did not apologize. He offered no explanation, no comfort, only the cold, unyielding truth of his ambition. The second night, Odin returned. The air in the cavern was thick with unspoken tension, heavy with the weight of the previous night's deception. Gunlarth watched him, a tangle of betrayal and fascination warring within her. The sting of his cunning, the blatant disregard for his oath, was a bitter taste in her mouth. Yet, a strange, undeniable magnetism still drew her to him. The power he now exuded, subtly yet undeniably, was captivating. He spoke, not of grand battles or cosmic wonders, but of her. He spoke of her quiet strength, her unwavering devotion to her lonely vigil, her steadfastness in the face of isolation. He acknowledged her sacrifice, the endless, thankless years she had spent guarding the mead. His words, though she knew they were part of his design, somehow soothed the sting of his deception, applying a balm to the raw wound of her trust. He spoke of love, not in the romantic sense, but as the enduring force that binds families and communities, of the profound loss that shapes souls, and of the indomitable spirit of the human heart, its capacity for both darkness and light. Gunlarth, despite her anger, found herself opening up, sharing her thoughts, her long-held burdens, her fears, her silent hopes. Odin listened, truly listened, making her feel less alone than she had ever been in her long, solitary life. The cavern, though still echoing with the memory of his deception, seemed to soften, becoming a chamber of confession and quiet understanding. As the second night waned, the first tentative tendrils of dawn light touched the cavern's entrance, painting the rough rock walls with soft, pearlescent hues. The world outside stirred, birds beginning their morning chorus, though their songs were faint and distant. "It is time, my lady," Odin said, his voice now imbued with a greater depth, a more profound resonance. His gaze drifted to Bothan, the second vat, its golden surface still unbroken, promising untold wisdom. My second sip. Gunlarth felt a familiar pang of dread, a cold clench in her stomach. The memory of Otherwarir's emptying was fresh, a stark reminder of his true intent. She watched, her hands clenched at her sides, as Odin approached Bothan. He lifted it, the colossal vat seeming almost weightless in his powerful hands. A fleeting expression, a shadow of something akin to sorrow, crossed his face. "Forgive me, Gunlarth," he murmured, his voice a low whisper, almost lost in the vastness of the cavern. It was not an apology for his deception, but perhaps for the pain he was inflicting, a fleeting acknowledgement of her suffering. Then, with the same powerful, unyielding gulp that had emptied the first vat, he drained Bothan. The golden river flowed into him, a second torrent of inspiration and knowledge. The air shimmered, the light in the cavern intensifying, reflecting the surge of power. Gunlarth watched, her eyes burning with unshed tears, as Bothan emptied. The gurgling rush, though familiar, now felt like a mocking echo of her broken trust. When he lowered the vat, it too was utterly empty, a hollow testament to his insatiable thirst. Odin stood, radiating a greater aura of power, his presence almost blinding. His form seemed to ripple with unseen energies, and his eyes, now gleaming with even more profound knowledge, seemed to hold the secrets of the cosmos. Another profound sip, Odin stated, his voice now ringing with divine resonance, truly the voice of a god, echoing off the ancient stone, shaking the very foundations of the cavern. A single tear escaped Gunlarth, tracing a path down her cheek, a hot, silent testament to her pain. It was not just the mead, the irreplaceable magic that had been stolen. It was the broken trust, the cruel manipulation, the shattering of her solitary peace. The tears mirrored the emptying of the vats, a draining of her spirit. The third night arrived. The cavern felt heavier, imbued with the weight of the two empty vats, silent witnesses to Odin's cunning. Gunlarth sat in silence, her usual vigil now a vigil of sorrow. Only San, the third vat, remained, its golden light a lonely beacon in the cavern's gloom. Odin appeared, his presence now immense, almost overwhelming. He no longer needed to charm or persuade. His power radiated, undeniable. Yet, he still spoke. He spoke of the future, of the boundless power of words to shape destiny. He spoke of creation, not just of worlds, but of ideas, of the universe's deepest mysteries, and the infinite wellspring of inspiration that would flow through poets, bards, and seers for all time. He spoke of his grand design, a cosmic tapestry woven with threads of sacrifice and necessity, of the delicate balance between chaos and order, and the essential role of wisdom in maintaining that balance. He made her feel part of something vast, something beyond her understanding, yet undeniably connected to her very being. He spoke of the poets he would inspire, their their voices carrying his wisdom across the realms, shaping. A deep warmth spread through Odin. It settled in his bones. He felt the mead's power surge. His form began to shift. Feathers sprouted from his skin. They were dark, like the deepest night. His limbs stretched, growing long and strong. A sharp beak replaced his mouth. His eyes, already keen, sharpened further. They gleamed with new insight. He was an eagle now, a magnificent, powerful eagle. He felt the wind already calling him. It whispered promises of flight. He turned his gaze towards the opening. The passage lay before him. He launched himself into the air. His wings beat once, then twice. He soared upward, swift and silent. The cavern shrank beneath him. He was free. He was truly free, burst from the mountain's maw. The sky welcomed him. It was a vast, open expanse. The clouds drifted lazily. The sun, a distant orb, warmed his feathers. He inhaled deeply. The air was crisp and clean. It filled his mighty lungs. He felt a thrill of victory. The mead was his now. Its magic coursed through his veins. He set his course for Asgard. It lay far across the realms. He knew the way instinctively. His ancient wisdom guided him. He flew faster and faster. The wind sang in his ears. It was a song of triumph. Below him, the landscape blurred. Forests became green swaths. Rivers, silver ribbons, mountains, mere bumps on the earth. He flew with purpose. Every beat of his wings carried him closer. His heart pounded with excitement. He was bringing a great gift, a gift of poetry and wisdom, a gift for all of Asgard. He imagined the gods' faces, their joy, their understanding. He felt a deep satisfaction. This quest was nearly complete. Then a sound reached him, a distant, angry shriek. It was growing louder. He looked back sharply. Another eagle appeared. It was enormous. Its plumage was dark. Its eyes burned with rage. It was Sudungur. Odin's heart sank slightly. He knew this would happen. Sudungur was relentless. He would not give up easily. The chase had begun. Sudungur's wings beat furiously. He gained on Odin. His speed was astonishing. He was filled with fury. The theft gnawed at him. His precious mead was gone. Odin had tricked him. He would pay for this. Sudungur let out another cry. It echoed through the sky. It was a challenge, a promise of vengeance. Odin pushed harder. His wings burned. He tucked his body tighter. He became a feathered arrow. He weaved through the clouds. He used the wind currents. He was a master of the air. But Sudungur was close. He could feel his hot breath. The air crackled with tension. The pursuit was relentless. They flew over Jotunheim, the land of giants. Its jagged peaks loomed. Dark valleys stretched below. The air grew colder here. The wind howled like a beast. Odin dodged a towering crag. Sudungur followed swiftly. He was a shadow, unwavering. His intent was clear. He wanted his mead back. Odin plunged into a gorge. It was narrow and deep. The walls rose steeply. The light dimmed here. He twisted and turned. He used every trick he knew. Sudungur was right behind him. His talons nearly grazed Odin's tail. Odin felt a jolt of fear. This was a true test. His life depended on it. He burst from the gorge. He climbed rapidly. He aimed for the sun. Its light offered some cover. Sudungar pursued him upward. Their ascent was dizzying. The air thinned around them. Odin gasped for breath. His muscles screamed, but he could not falter. Not now. The realms passed beneath them. Niflheim shrouded in mist, Muspelheim glowing with fire. Odin flew with desperate speed. He felt the mead's warmth. It sustained him. It gave him strength. It whispered encouragement. "Fly, Odin, fly," it seemed to say. "Bring me home." Sudungar's rage intensified. He was losing ground slowly. Odin's flight was masterful, his agility unmatched. But Sudungar was determined. He would fly until he dropped. He would reclaim what was his. His eyes burned with obsession. His beak was open slightly. He was panting now. Odin saw it then. A faint shimmer in the distance. The Bifrost Bridge. The Rainbow Bridge. It stretched across the void. It connected Midgard to Asgard. Home was within reach. A surge of hope filled him. He pushed even harder. His wings beat with renewed vigor. He was almost there. Sudungar saw it too. His fury mounted. He let out a piercing shriek. He knew he was losing. He poured all his energy into flight. He closed the distance a little. He was so close. He could almost taste victory. He stretched his neck out, his talons extended. He made one last lunge. Odin felt a sharp pain. A feather tore from his wing. Sudungar had grazed him. He cried out briefly. The pain was fleeting. He pushed through it. He could not stop now. He was seconds away. The Bifrost glowed brighter. Its colors pulsed with light. He shot towards the bridge. He flew low, just above its surface. Sudungar was right behind him. His shadow loomed large. Odin could hear his ragged breaths. The wind rushed past his ears. The sounds of pursuit were deafening. He was so close to safety. Then the golden gates appeared. The gates of Asgard. They shimmered with ancient magic. They were open, waiting. Odin flew through them. He was inside the walls. He was safe. He had made it. He transformed back instantly. His human form returned. He stumbled slightly. Sudungar, still in eagle form, screeched. He flew up to the gates. He saw Odin. He saw his mead. He beat his wings against the air, but he could not pass. The gates of Asgard repelled him. He let out a frustrated cry. He circled once, then twice. He turned, defeated. He flew back the way he came. His rage still burned. Odin stood panting. His chest heaved. He had done it. He had brought the mead. He looked down at his stomach. The mead was still there, warm and pulsing. He walked forward slowly. The gods were waiting. They had gathered. They watched him with anticipation. He approached the great hall, Valhalla itself. Its doors stood open wide. The air inside vibrated. It hummed with power. The gods rose to greet him. Thor, mighty and strong. Freya, radiant and wise. Frigg, serene and knowing. All of them eager. Odin felt a strange sensation. The mead began to rise. It moved within him. He bent over a large vat. It was made of gold. It shimmered in the hall's light. He opened his mouth. A stream of golden liquid poured out. It flowed into the vat. It was the mead of poetry. It sparkled and gleamed. It smelled of honey and wisdom. The gods watched in awe. They saw its power. They felt its presence. Odin emptied himself of Thed. He poured it all into the vat, every last drop. But then a small hiccup. A tiny bit of mead escaped. It sputtered from his mouth. It landed on the floor. A few precious drops. They were insignificant, or so it seemed. These drops were quickly forgotten. They soaked into the stone. The gods cheered. They raised their voices. Odin, Odin, they cried. You have brought us a gift. They approached the vat. They dipped their golden goblets. They drank deeply. The mead filled them. It brought new understanding, new words, new insights. They felt the surge of inspiration. Ideas blossomed in their minds. They spoke with eloquence. Their thoughts flowed freely. They understood the universe. They understood themselves. The mead of poetry had granted them this. It was a true blessing. Odin smiled, weary but content. He had fulfilled his quest. He had brought wisdom to Asgard. He had shared the gift. Now the gods would speak. They would inspire. They would create. Their words would shape the world. Some of the mead was reserved. It would be shared with deserving humans. Those who sought wisdom. Those who loved words. They too would drink. They too would be inspired. They would become poets. They would become seers. Their voices would carry far. But what of the spilled drops? The small, forgotten puddles. They remained on the floor, unnoticed, unappreciated. These drops were left behind. They were not gathered. They were not shared. They were for a different purpose. These few drops, they say, they are for the bad poets, those whose words lack grace, those whose verses fall flat, those whose rhymes are forced. They only receive the spillage, the leftovers, the forgotten bits. Their poetry is clumsy. It lacks true magic. And so it came to be. Odin became the god of poetry, the god of wisdom, the god of inspiration. His name was spoken with reverence. He had journeyed far. He had faced danger. He had triumphed. He had brought a great gift. The golden vat stood in Valhalla, a symbol of knowledge, a fount of creativity. The gods would return to it, time and time again, to refresh their minds, to renew their spirits, to find new ways to express the beauty of existence. Odin looked out over Asgard. The golden city shimmered. Its spires reached the sky. He felt a deep peace. His quest was done. The long journey was over. He had faced his trials. He had overcome his challenges. He had brought light. He thought of Sudungur, still raging in Jotunheim. His anger would fade, eventually, but the mead was gone. It was safe now, in Asgard, where it belonged, where it would do good, where it would inspire. For all eternity, the echoes of the chase faded, the sounds of struggle gone. Only the soft hum remained, the hum of new beginnings, the hum of creation, the hum of poetry. It filled the air. It filled all the realms. A gentle, steady hum. Odin closed his eyes. He breathed deeply. The scent of mead lingered. It was sweet and profound. He felt the power within him, the power of words, the power of thought, the power of inspiration. It was a part of him now, forever. He turned to the gods. Their faces glowed. Their eyes shone. They were speaking. Their words flowed like rivers. They were composing verses. They were sharing tales. They were truly inspired. It was a beautiful sight, a testament to his quest. The sun began to set. Its golden light streamed. It bathed Asgard in warmth. The sky turned to purple, then to deep indigo. The stars began to appear. They twinkled like diamonds, each one a tiny poem, written in the heavens. Odin felt sleep approaching, a peaceful, well-earned rest. He had done his work. He had fulfilled his destiny. The mead of poetry was safe. Its magic would endure. It would bring beauty. It would bring truth. It would bring understanding. He thought of the journey, the hidden caverns, the fierce giants, the cunning plots, all worth it, every step, every challenge for this moment, for this gift, for the endless flow of words that would now grace the worlds. A gentle breeze stirred. It carried the scent of night. It whispered through the hall. It was a lullaby, a soft, sweet melody. It invited slumber. It called for rest. Odin welcomed it. He was truly weary, but deeply content. He found a quiet corner. He settled down slowly. The sounds of the hall faded. The voices of the gods softened. They became a gentle murmur, a comforting drone. He closed his eyes once more. His mind was at peace. The stars outside twinkled. They seemed to sing a quiet song, a song of gratitude, a song of creation, a song of dreams. Odin drifted deeper, into a calm, deep sleep, his quest complete, his gift bestowed, the mead of poetry forever flowing. If these whispers brought you rest, you're welcome to subscribe for more calm tales. A gentle, like also guides fellow night owls here.